It's 1991. I'm tucked up in bed under a Thomas the Tank Engine duvet set in the box room of my childhood home. It's long past my bedtime. I'm so pumped full of adrenaline, I know I won't sleep for a week. Because my dad and I are about to fight a Minotaur. And we're going to win. My dad was an actor and a storyteller, so while other kids were being force-fed The Hungry Caterpillar on repeat, he was turning my bedroom into an amphitheatre and performing the greatest hits of Greek mythology every night. For the last 10 years, I've been a professional magician, and I also run a management consultancy here in the UK. Every year, I give hundreds of talks, presentations, and performances, and I'm always trying to improve my public speaking. Over the course of, I don't know how many videos, I'm going to share the techniques I use to write, rehearse, and present all the talks, presentations, and performances I give. I'm also going to demonstrate how these approaches look in practice, and I'll try and share them in a logical order that will make it easy to understand how to apply them in practice. At the end of this series, you'll have some practical tools you can use, not only to be a confident speaker, but to really entertain and connect with audiences in a way that stays with them. If that sounds interesting to you, then let's get into it. Okay, so we're right at the beginning of the process. Let's imagine you've been asked to do a talk or a presentation, or maybe you've been lucky enough to be asked to be somebody's best man and you've got to prepare a speech. I'm going to assume you don't know what you're going to talk about just yet. Maybe you've got some loose ideas about what the narrative could be, but we are starting from scratch. Right here, my friends, is where most people take a wrong turn. Now, unless you studied literature or creative writing, then the chances are you will approach this task using what I like to call the high school exam method. Think right back to English exams, the ones you took when you were 15 or 16, where you had to write a short story. If you're anything like me, the way you approach that task is by writing the very first thing that came to mind. Whatever popped into your head is what ended up on the paper. Now, whenever you're asked to give a talk or a presentation, there are just so many angles that you could explore. Chances are, the very first idea that pops into your head is not the most compelling story you have to offer. So before you get started, it's worth having a think, what are all the different stories I could tell here? There are loads of tools and frameworks you can use that help with this exercise, but the one that I use all the time, it's been used for over 100 years in journalism, is called the 5 Ws. It's actually 5 Ws and an H, and those letters, unsurprisingly, stand for who, what, where, when, why, and how. Now, here's how I use this in practice. I think about the topic that I've got to talk about, and then I write down all Ws and the H on a piece of paper, and I answer each of those questions in relation to the topic that I'm going to talk about in as many ways as possible. I don't judge any of the ideas that come out of my head. Some of them will be inappropriate or absolutely rubbish. The idea here is to go for quantity and not quality. From quantity, we will find some quality. I'm going to walk you through a real example of me doing this. I haven't rehearsed this beforehand. Let's assume that I'm going to give a talk on how to be a good public speaker. I'm going to do the exercise, and you can see the kinds of things that just pop into my head as we go. I'm just going to set myself a 2-minute timeline, add a bit of jeopardy. I would definitely spend a lot more time on this, probably about 10 minutes. But let's see where I get to. It'll be kind of interesting to see what kind of ideas that come to mind. What else? Anything that's missing here? Oh, there we go. I'm out of time. Okay, so immediately I hadn't thought about this, so I learned loads from my mentor in magic. He's told me so many stories about amazing performers and the ways that they prepared for shows, that kind of thing. Those are some really interesting stories that I could tell. This is good because already I'm realizing there's so many different things that I could talk about here. So I could literally do a whole video on like how do you stand on stage, and immediately now I'm thinking about eye contact. That's another idea. Contact. Where? So I got some choices to make here. Am I going to focus this on people that want to get better at public speaking for work, or maybe people that are doing kind of speeches? Probably fewer people are interested in standing up on stage and performing and doing comedy. They're probably looking for other videos to find out more about that. But probably this is like an interesting angle. And this is a nice idea because this is a broad topic. So I probably want to break it down in terms of things that you can do like really quickly. That's a clock. That's not clear. This is all the things you could do over a long period of time. That's probably something I need to think about in the structure. Now, my guess is probably people are not thinking about public speaking in the context of social situations and sort of telling stories and being confident in front of their friends and family and peers, probably interested in things that they can do to just like level up their speaking. And generally, maybe they've got stage fright. That wasn't something that immediately occurred to me before I started this exercise. And then the how, there's all kinds of tools that I could show, that I could talk about, but actually showing them is probably going to be more useful, like demonstrating literally how you use these things. So that's probably something that I want to cover in the video. So just from that really quick exercise, you can see that there are all kinds of different angles that we could pursue here. I've got options, which is a really good start. The question is, which are the good options? What are the nuggets of gold that we should be sifting for? Audiences connect with personal stories, stories that only you can tell. They recognize when we're being honest, and they're fascinated by things we're passionate about, things we love. Details that require us to be just a little bit vulnerable, cut through the trivial. Now, regardless of what kind of talk or presentation you need to give, it's these details that resonate with people. And if you can build your talk around them, then you will immediately stand out from your peer group. If you want to find more techniques on how to find and craft really impactful and beautiful stories, then I couldn't recommend more highly Storyworthy by Matthew Dix. It's packed full of great exercises and ideas, particularly like his exercise, first, last, best, worst. Go check it out. For our purposes, I'm going to assume that we've got enough to work with. But if we were to stand up and try and give this presentation right now, then it would almost certainly end in catastrophe, because we ought to actually write this thing and rehearse it. Rehearse it to the point that it feels natural and effortless, which is going to be the topic of the next video. And if I've been sufficiently productive, then you'll be able to find that by clicking on the card up here. See you in the next one.